My name is Dylan Novacek, and I am Beacon's content specialist. It takes a collaborative to see that all people have a home. I had the opportunity to chat with Sarah Gavert and Barbara Brooks, two Beacon leaders in the Southwest Metro. Listen along to our roundtable discussion as we share what it takes to create Prairie Pointe and its 42 deeply affordable homes in Shakopee, Minnesota. Thanks for listening. And today we're doing a Southwest Roundtable to talk about leadership in your region. Justin and I have a goal of sharing with our followers the work that's being done in the Southwest and how you guys are all kind of coming together to advocate for sheltering families and for the creation of Prairie Pointe. So in this meeting today, we're just going to kind of have an open conversation about your experiences with Beacon and what you guys are doing to help see that all people have a home. So before we get into the questions, Justin, do you have anything to add?
I mean, that sounds really good. I think that one of the things that I also really like about our work is that, you know, we get to talk a lot about the physical work that we're doing, but also like what are the spiritual and faith elements and like the humanness of the work that we're doing. I think of seeing all of your leadership over the last 8 months and the ways that we've grown as individuals, as teams, but also this work is deeply personal, whether we've been affected by issues in our life that have put us on the margins or where we've struggled, talking openly about our neighbors and the struggles that we're all facing. I think that that's another good reflection too, is like what has challenged and pushed us as individuals. Where has our faith been pushed or lifted up? So those are just some other thoughts to lift up. Pretty informal conversation, nothing too crazy, but it's just it's a great opportunity for us to kind of get to chat. And Barb and Sarah, I don't know if you guys know each other all that well, but I'm glad that we got some cross-team dialogue going on.
I certainly know who Sarah is and all the great work done at Hope Lutheran.
Amen.
Yeah, well, the first question we have here actually is introduction. So Barb, do you want to take the lead and tell us a bit about yourself? What congregation you're from, how long you've been a part of Beacon, just an overview of who you are?
Okay, Barbara Brooks. I go to Waconia Moravian Church where I'm on the Beacon leadership team. And of course, it started with Families Moving Forward. When that idea was presented to our church, the elders, voted for it immediately. And we've been housing families ever since in conjunction with Trinity Lutheran. The two churches work together. Sometimes they're at our church, sometimes they're staying at Trinity Lutheran, and we really miss the opportunity to engage other people in Families Moving Forward with the families staying in hotels. It's just become, like a 3-person event to provide food and stuff like that. So looking forward to the days when we can meet the families again and involve more folks.
Great. And Sarah, want to tell us about yourself, what congregation you're from, and your connection to Beacon?
Sarah Gavert from Hope Lutheran Church in Jordan, and we became involved with Beacon, same as Barb's church. With we got involved with you guys through Families Moving Forward, and things kind of mushroomed from there. So.
Yeah, you guys are both longtime advocates and have been doing a lot of great work to see that all people have a home. So my next question for you both is, how would you each define home?
I'm going to go with Matthew Desmond's definition of home, which is the word womb. And I've recently read Sarah Wilkerson's group, The Warmth of All Suns, where she talks about the birth process. Birthing home, coming into the world, and how important it is for home to have a place to call home.
That's beautiful. I think of home as a sanctuary, place of safety, and where you can go in and you can shut the door and leave the world behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I ask this question in every one of my interviews because it's always different answers, and you can always hear a lot about the person from how they answer it. So with that said, why is this work important to you, Sarah?
It started out because I have a son that struggles with mental illness, and he was homeless for a while because of his addiction issues. And boy, do mental health and addiction issues seem to go hand in hand sometimes, one leading into the other or vice versa. But that's how it started out. And it has since become a passion, because there are so many people that I know that have either been homeless at one point, or know someone who has, or have come close to homelessness. And I think I don't even know how, I can't remember that one saying I was thinking of just a second ago. But it could have been me. And it's only by the grace of God do I have a home. So it can happen to anybody, and there's no predicting what's going to happen in a person's life and what's going to lead them down the road to homelessness. And it says right there in the Bible, doggone it, that we are to help. Well, we're to help our neighbors, and we're to help our, help everyone in the village. It's supposed to be collective. So
that's really well said. And whenever I hear stories about it, that's the most important thing, is to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's in that position. What it's like to live in that moment of instability where you're kind of suspended over, will it happen, will it not? So to minimize that and to make sure that all people who are living on that edge have an option is so important. So Barbara, why is this work important for you as well?
Well, it's a way for me to live out my faith. I do, I say the three guiding verses from the Bible for me are love your neighbor, and then Micah 6:8, to do justice, and faith without works is dead. So it's definitely a way, and it actually did start my involvement, I don't know how many years ago, like 25 or something. When I used to live in Minneapolis, close to the north side, and they wanted to revitalize an area of North Minneapolis. And one day our pastor stood in front of a bulldozer and said, "It's not going to be today that you're taking down this structure." And that was a galvanizing moment, and I've been involved in the issue in one way or other ever since then.
It's amazing seeing how this work has inspired both of you, and how it's really rooted in your faith traditions to help see that everyone has a home. So with that, a big important piece of that is making sure that we bring more people in on this work. So a big question we want to ask today are, what are some examples of how we are deepening relationships with our congregations and bringing others into this work? I know it's kind of a broader question, so feel free to take some time to think more about it.
I mean, like doing Families Moving Forward, one person cannot do it. It does take a whole cadre of volunteers to be able to serve the families in a way that is respectful and loving. And so that's one way to bring people in, but also we've held at the Moravian Church, we've held a few different seminars where people are invited to come. We've done an in-reach. Right now, we're trying to get people to send letters to the county commissioners. And as I mentioned earlier, we work in conjunction with Trinity. And so I've talked to a few people there, trying to get them more involved in the advocacy work, but so far I haven't been successful. But and I've talked to people outside of the church about it too. So
so it sounds like you've been doing a lot of work to bring more people in. Is that right then?
I could always do more, I guess, but I try.
So as you've been trying to reach out to other people, what are some ways that you felt challenged in your leadership, and how have you overcome that?
I'm just, always disappointed that more people don't just jump on the bandwagon, but I know
Mhm.
lots of people have, a lot busier life than I have as a retired person. So, but on the other hand, you have to respect that. And when the time is right, certainly the opportunities are there. And, gradually there are more and more people, and this has become part of the foundation actually of Waconia Moravian Church, because most recently we purchased a third property and very intentionally rented it out to a low-income family, and the trustees have made the decision that whenever a vacancy becomes available, and we own 3 different properties,
Mhm.
that low-income folks will get the first priority whenever a vacancy occurs. So that is huge. That would not have happened 2 or 3 years ago. I can tell you that for sure.
Mhm.
So, and a lot of that has to do with Beacon's influence on our congregation, the leadership from Beacon too. So we really appreciate that.
That's great. And yeah, Ashley recently wrote an article about Waconia Moravian and all the great work that's happening over there. So awesome to lift that up and to celebrate that they're making sure that people have housing. And that's brilliant. That's amazing. Yeah.
It is.
So Sarah, how about you? How are you helping to bring more people into this work? And how is it challenging you as a leader?
I don't know if we're making much headway lately with getting more people involved. It's, with COVID, it's really, really hard to connect with people. And, but I must admit that with the phone calls we did about the email campaign about commissioners, I had some wonderful conversations with people from my church that may not have happened had I not had this list that said, you got to call these people. And, it's just not as easy these days to do things. And I really love, I was on Facebook one day and there was an ad.
Mhm.
I mean, Beacon had an ad scroll through, and most of the time I just ignore the ads, but it's like, oh my gosh, it's Beacon. It's an ad right there. So I thought that was great.
Mhm.
What a tool. And, I use Facebook a lot, and what a platform to, I know a lot of people don't like it, but I love it. And it is what you make of it, I think. Yeah, between Facebook and email and any way you can put a plug in for homelessness and the advocacy for this kind of work.
And a big part of connecting with people online is like sharing these stories about our leadership and our work. So that kind of perfectly leads into my next question for you both. What are some standout moments you've had as a leader, as an advocate for Beacon?
The standout moment was when we brought that bus down to that convening. That was, well, it was good for us, and it was, and it got quite the reaction from people. And it was just so cool, and it was a good, because we talked about it at church. We had the picture up there on the video screen and everybody applauded and, look what we're doing. And it was I know you aren't supposed to applaud yourself and, pat yourself on the back for doing things, but
I think you earned it at that point though. Like bringing that many people in is a big deal.
We worked at it, I mean, there was a lot of phone calling that went on with that. And, and it wasn't just about the numbers to get people there. It's, if you were on that bus, you were making a commitment, and we were going to be coming back and, getting you to do something else.
Right.
I do miss the convenings. I found those
Yeah.
convenings to be very inspirational. Though there's always, such good information and such good testimony. And that was a way to get people out,
Yeah.
and which we don't have right now, but hopefully we will sometime in the future.
Justin's first week at Beacon was the week of our last convening, wasn't that right, Justin?
I was on staff for 3 days.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, that you bring that up.
And I was surrounded from people by the Southwest, and a lot of handshakes. Not so many handshakes these days, but it was really overwhelming to see. I was joining an organization where hundreds of folks were coming together around this like shared vision, and it was the people that night where I kind of started to fall in love with Scott County that first night, because the folks that I met, and it was like, wait a minute, they brought a bus? Like, what? It was a very surreal experience, because you don't just see those people in the room, you see the thousands of people that they're connected to, and so yeah, that really was a powerful first introduction to the wonderful folks of the collaborative, but also Scott and Carver.
Yeah, so it sounds like for a lot of people, when I ask the question, what's a standout moment, is moments when we're able to rally the community and bring more people into this work, because our work is completely relational and completely, hey, I heard about this cause, can you please help out? And it really shows that when we work together, we're all better together. And a big part of that is because we're working with our faith values. So my next question for you both is, and you kind of touched on this earlier, how does this work tie into your faith values?
Yep, I already answered it. It just is, it's what we're supposed to do.
Sure. You're all called by it. So with that, how does this work inspire you? Have you taken any risks, and how you felt in those moments of risk taking?
Terrified. Being up on the stage at a couple of different events was,
Yeah, Sarah.
yeah, absolutely terrifying. But it was so doggone important that, it's just say a prayer, God, let me get through this. Use me how you want, and
Sure.
hopefully your words are going to come out of my mouth. And
I was gonna say, so you did something that was scary and took a risk. How'd you feel after that? Once you got off the stage, how'd that feel for you? You did something scary, you did it really well. How'd you feel?
it was really, it was rather a weird kind of feeling, because I had the shakes afterwards, and it was, really weird. I had this feeling of heat, and or maybe I should say warmth, and kind of felt embraced.
That's wonderful.
So
Holy Spirit.
well, that's what I'm hoping. That's the way I took it.
Right.
So
I think my biggest moments of risk were when I'm approaching people who I'm pretty sure are not interested in the advocacy part of Beacon, but I just think it's so important that, I just go ahead and do it anyway. Sometimes successfully and sometimes not. So, but I say that's the most, the stuff that causes the most anxiety, although it's not a high level of anxiety.
So as a follow-up question to that, say someone was just wanting to get into advocacy now, but was on the fence about it and was kind of nervous. What advice would you give them to overcome that and to push them to becoming an advocate?
I think the most important thing is to educate yourself first so that you are comfortable knowing what you're advocating for. It's hard to be an advocate if you don't have at least a real basic, knowledge base to go forward. So that would be my advice.
Mhm.
And then just come to the events, come and learn, participate. And when the time is right, you'll find your voice,
my first thought is try it, you'll like it. It's you know, you can only share your own story and how it's impacted you.
Mhm.
And hearing from other people how you might have impacted somebody else. And so it's, they have that opportunity
Mhm.
that, you know, if you stand up for that person, then maybe your next door neighbor is going to stand with you. I
Yeah,
don't know
like,
if that makes sense.
oh, that makes
but-
perfect sense, because these
Okay.
stories definitely inspire people. And when one person does it, it's going to be a fantastic domino effect. One thing that I love that you said, Sarah, was try it once and you'll like it. I definitely got that feeling when I was at the Capitol for many days on the Hill right before the pandemic hit. And there are advocates just like you guys who were talking to state representatives for the very first time. And I just felt like their
Mhm.
nervousness beforehand and this uncertainty. But then after they came out of those meetings, we were back at the Capitol cafeteria and they were just buzzing and they were just like, I can't believe I did that. That's awesome. They heard me. And that kind of stuff is just so cool to just know that your voice now more than ever makes the biggest difference in the world.
Well, and you know, and something I learned from the day on the Hill, though, I'll tell you, is that for some reason in my mind, you put senators and representatives on this like pedestal.
Mhm.
Well, and then you finally meet them and it's like, he's just a man. I
Right.
mean, it's this, or woman, you know, whatever they may be. But I mean, it's just, there's kind of like that buildup and you get yourself on all nervous and anxious and, you know, it's just, they're just human, just like the rest of us. And
We have a couple more questions left in the roundtable. The next one's, again, a really broad question, but I guess, Barb, I'll ask you first. What do you feel is the heart of this story? What do you want people to take away from this conversation and what we're working on?
The importance of home and that there is a solution. It's a matter of setting priorities of where government money goes. And that it's, and persistence is just so important. You just
Mhm.
have to keep at it and keep at it. But the goal of Bring It Home Minnesota, I mean, just to think of the possibility of the implications of that, if that ever would come to be, which hopefully it will, you know, where somebody qualifies for some level of subsidy, whether it be $100 a month or $1,500 a month, whatever it might be, that they, you know, can get that and have stability for themselves and their children. You know, it's just it's the importance of home, and it's the value of the individual or the family. You know,
Absolutely.
have to be held as valuable.
Mhm. And a big part of that is mobilizing our faith communities to stand up for home and knowing that we all have a voice in this work.
Exactly.
Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
you pretty much said it. It's, you know, we as people of faith really need, and I do say, I mean need, we need to stand together.
Mhm.
And it takes all of us to do this work. And
For
it's,
sure.
I just love that about the village idea where everybody takes care of everybody and no one is without. And that's a dream, I guess, but you know, we all need to work together. And if people of faith can work together and get things done, and it says something to the rest of the world.
Mhm.
You know, it's just as important for the people who are homeless that we do this work as it is to people that maybe don't share our faith.
Mhm.
It's just as important for them, I think, to see what we can do as people of faith and
sure.
To live out what, you know, what we believe.
Mhm.
We just have to get to the point where homelessness is totally unacceptable. The fact
Yes.
that they've accepted it for all these years just
Mm.
it makes me shake my head. I just don't get it.
Yep.
But you know, it has become accepted, and that's a shame. That's a crime.
And it's great that we are taking steps to challenge that status quo and to say, no, all people are worthy of a affordable and safe home.
Especially in Minnesota winters.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yep.
especially in areas like in the Southwest, where people often don't think homelessness exists outside of the Twin Cities, but it's in every single one of our communities, which is why building homes like Prairie Pointe is so important right now. Can you tell me about a time where you felt very proud of this work?
I have gone to like city council meetings in Hopkins and in Shakopee, you know, where the planning commission, for example, passed
Mhm.
passed the resolution or whatever the right word is
Mhm.
to build Prairie Point or Vista 44. That was a moment of pride, not for me as an individual, but as everybody as a group coming together, and the council or the planning commission recognizing the importance of this work and you know the human value
Mhm.
of it.
Awesome. How about you, Sarah?
Well, the impact on Shakopee City Council, it was amazing. And also, you know, that the QAP thing,
Yeah.
don't ask me to explain any of it because I don't quite understand it all. I've got a really short definition for my own brain, but otherwise, you know, but I was one of the ones that sent an email when we did the email campaign for the QAP. So, and you know, that I was one of the voices, along with how many others from Beacon and other groups that sent emails to these people, and they went back and looked at things. And I mean, that's just amazing. It really is it's a good thing.
Yep. And it's all rooted in showing up for home and going to all the events we
Yep.
can and just letting people know that we're here and we won't tolerate homelessness anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that concludes all the questions I have. Justin, do you have any additional things to say?
Oh yeah. So
You
many
should have known
things.
that was coming.
Well, I often hear from folks about the word leadership, where it's like, I don't see myself as a leader. And I have seen such strong leadership from both Hope Lutheran and Waconia Moravian, even when the world flipped on its head and we're really still trying to figure out how to organize in a digital world. But Barb brought a bunch of folks to our last regional meeting, and I have a one-to-one set today with a gal who's just fired up for the work. Despite how frustrating it can be that folks don't show up, it's the ones who do that help us build those relationships to expand. Sarah, the Hope Lutheran folks have just crushed the email campaign. And, you know, I want you to just maybe, what are some of the highlights? Because it's difficult for us to build relationships right now. And to have one-to-one conversations with folks is like, we know that one-to-ones are the building blocks for the power we're building to advance Prairie Point, to change policy. You know, what was like one conversation that you had in your phone tree that really stood out?
You know, I spoke with a woman, Christy, that, you know, she's like, well, how many emails can I send? You know, I mean, it was, she has her niece living with her, and her niece was homeless, and they are, you know, she's living with them for right now, and she's disabled, and they're looking for a home for her, instead of living in their basement. So it's like, I mean, she was just over the top enthused to do this. And she She goes, oh, and don't you worry, Larry and Renee will both send emails too. You just count on us. And it's like, you know, she goes, I'll make sure they do. So, I mean, it was just, and hopefully they did all send in emails, but yeah, it was just wonderful to hear somebody else being so passionate about it and about the work we're doing.
Oh, and vulnerable too, you know, sharing this
Yep.
very personal relationship to the issue. And, you know, as we were, you know, kind of test piloted the closer to home surveys, both of your congregations were kind of a part of that. And there's some really human conversations that came out of that. And I think that, you know, that's going to be like a huge part of our work over the next year, 2 years in Scott County. It's like, this issue affects all of us. I mean, you know, Barb, you guys did the survey out in Waconia too, and we had that follow-up forum. Was there anything that surprised you from what people were saying? I mean, the survey results, 99% of folks out of like the 400 that took that survey knew somebody who was affected by the common issues that result in homelessness. I mean, how did that make you feel, Barb? You know, kind of sharing those stories with your team in that follow-up forum.
Well, I was really surprised at the results of the survey. I remember that. I don't recall a whole lot about it, except that I was kind of amazed at all the personal connections that there were to the issue of homelessness. And I personally am just really inspired by Madeline's story. Well, you know, God brought her to our congregation at the right time. Yeah, and the way that she stepped up in spite of many other issues that she has to deal with. So,
Yeah, I think that's what inspires me the most is how, you know, we're sending emails, we're going to meetings and things like that, but it's those stories that really, I think, not just like deepen me in my faith, but also it's when we look at Scott and Carver County, I think a lot of the people who might be against the things that we're fighting for are actually really wrestling with like how close they might have been to homelessness, that and maybe they don't think of that in the terms of like my loved ones and my friends and family. So the work we're doing is more about, it's not about just the emails and attending meetings. It really is lifting up this conversation that from our hearts, our faith, our neighbors, our friends and family, like that's what's moving Prairie Pointe. You know, I think that our faith and our stories collectively are what's going to move those housing solutions. And you guys have been leading that, and it's really powerful. The QAP was because of your work and your team's work. The QAP would have killed Prairie Pointe if it wasn't for your advocacy. And I will tell you this, Sarah, they are getting emails. We had a follow-up meeting with some of the commissioners, and it came up. Like they're getting emails every day, sometimes like dozens or more. So it's our faith in personal stories, but also working together. And it's been a challenge, I think, with trying to figure out how to have leadership teams in a moment where we can't be together. But your dedication and passion and all the folks around the table, it's been a really powerful experience.
thank heavens for Zoom.
Thank heavens for Zoom when it works.
Yep.
I mean, that's all I really had to say, Dylan. I just think that this work really is, it brings out the most human and spiritual aspects of ourselves into the world. And when we live a public life with our, not necessarily just from our heads, but from our hearts and our faith, like we really can move some mountains, especially in Scott and Carver counties.